Nowadays, the time where a man becomes a man and a woman becomes a woman is still 13 and 12. 13 for a man and 12 for a woman.
Yeah.
Say clearly 13-year-olds are not men nowadays and 12-year-olds are not women. So shouldn't we change the age?
The truth is, some people are 30-year-old and they're not men, neither a woman, neither mature men or women. Again, this is also actually a spiritual process that every single person is born with what is called the Yetzer Hara or Nefesh HaBahamis, and we'll call it a selfish gene. Every single person is born with a very dominant ego. Children, up until a very almost 6 months, believe that everything around them is an extension of them, that their mother is actually an extension of them. This is why children get very frustrated. If you don't feed a child that's 2 months old, they go crazy. They think that the mother's milk should be available at all times, at any time of the night. Because really, conceptually, they actually don't know that their bodies end and there's something, a continuation of something else that's outside of themselves. That's why we find little children, sometimes they're looking at the edge of their fingers and the edge of their toes, because they're discovering that their body ends. And the process of the soul entering into the body, the soul represents the part of ourself that is transcendent, the part of ourself that is egoless, the part of ourselves that actually can be altruistic and be there for another person beyond ourselves. That's the dimension, that's the spiritual quality that we have. We're born with that part of the soul, but it's in a very, very concealed manner. And it's a process through which, over periods of time, this soul starts entering into the body and has a stronger effect. So it's not maturity that we call maturity, which is a responsible person that can have a job, can get married. That's not what maturity is according to Kabbalistic or in a deeper understanding. This is not what we're talking about maturity. And then indeed there's people that are 30-year-olds that are not mature. We're talking about the capacity to be empathetic and sympathetic to another person, is the ability when our soul, it comes because of the ability when our soul enters into our body and integrates into our consciousness on a deeper level. And this actually occurs in the beginning of teenager years, where a child up until this period of time, 12, 13 years, until their teenager years, they are very much self-centered, and that's actually healthy for a child to be self-centered, to maintain their ego, because if a little child that's 6 months old will say, I'm going to be altruistic now, I'm not going to eat for a day because my mother's tired, God forbid they won't survive. So it's healthy and it's adaptive for us to be very much ego-based. And then as we're maturing means as we're spiritually evolving, higher levels of our soul enter into our body. And at 13 or 12 years old, that's when the soul enters our body, the beginning of the entry of the soul into the body in a more manifest way, which means that now the soul, we have a capacity to be sympathetic, and we see this already with teenagers. Not that they're not selfish, but they do have this capacity already to feel another person. And the truth is that the soul doesn't integrate into the body until much later on in life, fully. Till 20 years old is already another mark, which is considered in Jewish law considered a mark of more maturity, where we say that a person 20 years old is a borrowing shim. This means responsible for their own life, and they're not actually responsible till they're 20, and laws within the Shemaim, laws between God and man. And then there's the idea that a person's soul really fully enters into their body, which means that they fully become a possible transcendent being and fully responsible in life until 40. That's why the word neshama, which is the word soul, actually has the words mem shana, 40 years. Mem stands for 40, and shana is for year. So neshama really fully enters into 40 years. So the short answer to the question is that we're not talking about a maturity in terms of responsibility so much as a form of spiritual evolvement to leave the ego and to feel another person. And that actually also is a process which begins in teenager years, 12, 13 years old, and then further in 20, and then further in 40 years old.